Hey guys, Gavin, Seim here. Just thought I'd go live because there's a few interesting things I came up with today. And, well, this Marin's talking about. You know how people for years, right? I would talk in my videos, doing activism on the streets, trying to hold the police accountable. Hey, everybody, shout out to you guys in the live stream there. So I would always tell you guys, look, be very careful, watch out for things like planting guns, planting drugs in your car, things like that. Even back to early on when I was running for Congress and when I was first starting in activism around 2013, 2014, I did a little even before that. And I would say, look, I always lock the doors when I'm in a public parking lot. I don't leave things open. If I get out and I film a police officer, or if I'm stopped and engaging with a stop, if I'm pulled over in a police car, the door is locked and it does not go unlocked. I always call out situations. So if you guys if you're doing activism and you want to know more about this, I have lots of videos on doing activism, both from the street and from the studio, where I'm talking about just different ways to try and be as safe as possible, right? Name the things they're gonna try and accuse you of before. Password protect your phones. I mean, the reason I ultimately left the USA, the final straw, was when they were trying to force me to unlock my phone to give up my password. And people say, well, that's unconstitutional. Of course it was, but despite the fact that the judge told me in a previous court session I would not be forced to unlock my phone, guess what? Prosecutor files this motion, a new hearing scheduled to hear the argument on forcing me to unlock my phone. Shout out, guys. Good to see you in there, all right? So at that point, that's the point when I said enough is enough. I refused to comply with the terrorist court. And those of you who know my story already know this, so I won't go into it. If you don't know my story, go to the homepage on my channel, and there's lots of videos about why I left the USA and escaped across the southern border. And people mocked me. They said, well, you know, you're cowardly. And I'm thinking, cowardly because I refused to bow down to a terrorist court like everyone else is doing? Because I refuse to obey blue ISIS? How's that cowardly? But life goes on. And all this time they've said, Gavin, you're paranoid. Gavin, they were never out to get you. They just wanted to slap you on the wrist so you would leave them alone. Gavin, you're just making stuff up. Gavin, there was no conspiracy. Now, when it came to unlocking my phone, I said, look, I'd like to see the video of the encounter when I was last arrested. But I'm concerned that they will plant something on my phone. And people said, that's ridiculous. You're just being paranoid. What's really on your phone? And I'm like, well, what's really on the phone is the video from the stop. There's no contraband on my phone. But your phone, your property, your computer, it's yours. The government has no right to take you and kidnap you and force you to give them access to it, regardless of the reason. So today, I'm like, just kind of, you know how you get in a mood sometimes when you go and look up your criminal records. Most of you guys probably know that, right? You get one of those moods where you're like, hey, I wonder what my criminal records look like. Background check sites, right? Investigators, they actually get access to real data and background reports and stuff like that. But most of these sites that advertise it, they give you a little bit of information, but it's kind of incomplete and not very good. And then they charge you, and they act like it's cheap out there for me, besides the one out for me in Grant County, Washington, for refusing to show up for kangaroo court. Okay? And it's a reoccurring charge of like $20 a month. So I immediately go and I pay with PayPal. I immediately go cancel, within like an hour, I go cancel the reoccurring charge, and I have like 2 days access or something. And I start searching myself in different states and things. On check, even my date of birth was not listed correctly. But as I went through all this, I did find something very interesting. As I was searching warrants and arrests in Washington State, I came across. Am I back? I don't know what's going on. Let me know if you see me. You guys see me okay now? It might be the VPN. I might have had a VPN on. So let me know if you see me now. Finally got fiber down here in Mexico. I have a 300 megabit downstream and like a 50 megabit upstream. So if it's not working, I don't know. I'm still trying to work out the glitches, but it might have been that I was going through after. Here I thought it would be absolutely perfect, and it's not. That's super annoying. What can you do? I'll edit this out later. Let me know if you hear me, and we'll continue with this. As soon as it starts working, we'll continue with this conversation. Test, 1, 2, 3. Hello, it's Gavin Seim here. I'm gonna talk about my arrest records. Everybody says it's slow and glitching. What the hey? I literally did a speed test. I always do a speed test before I go live, and I had like 30 up and 60 down or something like that. So, okay, it sounds like it's working now. All right, continuing on here. All right, so in searching one of these sites, a lot of information was missing, but in the arrest records was this, all right? In the arrest/warrant records. Offense code 6950 401 Section B. That's a Washington RCW. Possession of methamphetamine. Okay? Now, you look on here, there's no arresting agency listed. This was filed 3 days, guys. You can go back and there's a video 3 days on the day that I was convicted for standing up to the kangaroo courts in Douglas County. This is 3 days after I was convicted, giving probation and home detention for standing up to a kangaroo court in Douglas County. That was my first arrest and conviction. Okay, so bear in mind, this is in 2015. This is just what we found. Now, if you go to the Washington State Court records, this isn't there. Apparently, whatever they did with this, it was later sealed or removed or discarded from the record system on Washington State courts. Here's the offense. Here's what happens. Dismissal and remand. The sentence was disappeared. I mean, the charge was disappeared. Let's go back. If we go here, here's this charge right here in the RCW, possession of methamphetamines. It's up to a 10-year sentence. Thanks, B. For possessing this. Now, it's important to understand, let me make this clear. I don't believe substances should be restricted, but I've never been high, I've never been smashed, I've never smoked weed, I've never even seen meth in person, much less possessed it, right? And yet here is these charges. Now, if we go over to here, you'll see these first records up here are from when I was arrested in the beginning of 2015 for standing up in the court, which I was later convicted. Now we go down to here though, and here's this one I just showed you, possession of methamphetamine. There's another one here that was later removed that says non-charge. How do you get arrested for a non-charge? How does that work exactly? There's another one here. This one is also has a code, 6950. This is another possession charge. We're talking felonies here, guys. This is a possession charge of controlled substances without a prescription. Again, dismissal and remand of appeal. There was no repeal. They just this stuff disappeared. Now you might say, well, maybe this is just an error in the record system. Guys, how does a public record system, this had to be in there at some point. A service that searches public records doesn't mysteriously get charges, arrest warrants against me that have my name, my information, RCWs, offense codes. These things don't just appear. These were in the system at one point. Remember when I told you shortly before I left the country, I was talking about how in the court filings, the prosecutor brought court filings 4 felonies that had never been filed. It was a recommendation for charges from a Soap Lake officer. If you go back in my channel, you'll see this. It's a recommendation of charges from a Soap Lake officer. And he said that as I walked away, I said, "We'll see you later." Remember that video? It's from late 2017, about a month before I escaped the U.S., right? And they were implying all these things, even though I just said, "All right, well, I'll see you later." After I'd filmed and engaged with him, they tried to charge me with 4 felonies. Those were brought into my court record when they were trying to force me to unlock my phone, when they were trying to punish me for filming a police officer in Afreda, Pat Kennedy, the guy that tried to set me up before I left. We never got to see that video because they stole my iPhone Never returned it. It's still locked away somewhere, and they weren't able to unlock it, and I wouldn't give them the unlock code. And when they were going to try to force me to give the unlock code, I left the country because I don't bow to terrorists. And so here we are, I've been in Mexico a year now, right? And here we are, and here's these charges that could put me in prison for a decade or more that go back, right? And you might say, well, these were from 2015, but this goes to the point. The system didn't want me to see this. If I go search Washington, or if you go search Washington state court records, you don't find this. They disappeared, whatever was going on here from the system. So it looks like there was some kind of an implication where they were probably going to stop me. I was on probation. They were going to plant methamphetamine and other substances in my vehicle, and then they were going to charge me with more major charges. This is shortly after I got convicted of standing up and interfering, which means standing up for the rule of law in a kangaroo court. So here we are in 2019, and it's still going on. And people are saying, Gavin, they weren't trying to get you. They weren't trying to hurt you. They weren't trying to put you in prison. You're just paranoid. And meanwhile, we have people like Jeff Winehouse and Schaefer Cox and Jim Hamilton and Leonard Peltier and countless thousands of others in a prison system that imprisons more people per capita than all other nations in the world. A police system that summarily, extrajudicially kills over 1,000 people a year on the street and it hospitalizes 50,000 more. Guys, know when to get out, especially if you're an activist, because you need to understand that they can do this at any time. I always tried to be careful. I locked the doors. I tried to not give them opportunities. If I suspected that they might try something, I would call it out before they even moved, if I could. Maybe God just kept me out of prison and got me out of the new Nazi Germany in spite of it all, but be careful. Never even